Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this special joint webinar, which is being co-hosted by Next Great Step and Mindy Knows. I'm Mindy Horowitz, and I'm the founder of Mindy Knows. We provide local parent support to families during the college years. We launched in 2019 at WashU in St. Louis and have since expanded to campuses across the country. If you are new to Mindy Knows and not familiar with us, please feel free to check out our website and you can see a full list of the colleges that we serve. But in the meantime, we're so happy to welcome families and partners joining us tonight from some of our campuses. We have Northern Arizona here tonight with Jen Stringer. Hi, Jen.
Hi, everyone.
So good to see you. We have Penn State with Tara Banerjee. Tara.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
And we have University of Iowa with Aunt Laura. So thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. We are also joined by Sherry Brooks from New York City, who helps us with marketing at Mindy Knows.
Hello.
Tonight, we are talking about a topic that is on so many of our minds. And I think that's very much evidenced by our incredible turnout. The topic tonight is empowering your young adult to land an internship or the first job in an AI job market. We are absolutely thrilled to have with us our career consultant, author, and go-to guide for thousands of young job seekers, and a dear friend of Mindy Knows, Beth Hendler Grunt. Before we begin, we just wanted to go through a few quick housekeeping notes. We know that your time is valuable, and we're thankful to you for joining us tonight. Our goal is to give you actionable insight as efficiently as we can. We may not be able to answer every individual question live, but we'll do our best. Please submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A box. And we will share contact information at the end of the webinar so you can follow up either with Mindy Knows or with Beth directly. So be on the lookout for that. And with no further ado, let me officially introduce our speaker, Beth Hendler Grunt. Beth is a founder and president of Next Great Step, a firm which is dedicated exclusively to helping college students and recent grads land the jobs that they deserve and seek. Beth brings strategies she has used advising CEOs and applies them to young professionals, giving them the tools and confidence to stand out and get hired. Her clients have a 90% success rate, landing roles at big organizations such as Amazon, Yelp, JP Morgan, Ernst & Young, and Major League Baseball. Beth is also the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, The Next Great Step, The Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad into a Career, a must-have resource for parents navigating this transition. She has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, NBC News, Fortune, CNN, to name a few. And she's also a mom to two children, including a current college senior. So she truly understands both sides of this journey. With that, I am super excited to turn things over to Beth to get us started. Beth, welcome. Thank you for being here
Thank
tonight.
you. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to adjust things a little bit here. Thank you, Mindy. I'm very excited to be here. And let me make sure with the panelists that we kind of get everybody off screen. Perfect. And thank you. So excited. And I'm going to kind of share a little bit. So I know we have a combination of both, all of the supporters who support both Mindy Knows and Next Great Step. Welcome. I'm really honored to be a part of this event. And as I know, so many are so concerned about what is happening right now in the market and how to support your young adult. So I want to give you a little bit more here, like a little more interactive view of myself. And let's make sure, okay, we got this set up correctly. Okay. So, we're all here. We all are here because we have someone in our life that we are concerned about. How do we help them, right? And how did we get here? This was supposed to be easy. You help your kid get to college, you all work on making that happen, and you assume that the school and university will help give them the academic education that they need to be successful in landing a job. And for some reason, it is just more difficult than any of us ever expected. And not quite sure how to navigate this. And I think there's a couple of things that are happening right now. Every year, over 2 million students are graduating college. A majority of them think they are ready for work, but only barely half of managers really agree. A few years ago, there were 2 jobs for every job applicant. Now, there's at least 2 applicants for every job. Highly competitive. And unfortunately, unemployment for grads right now is at 6%, higher than the national average of about 4%. Interestingly, this whole drive is also about internships. Everyone knows the value of that. But did you know that 8 million students wanted an internship last year and barely 50% got one? The demand significantly outweighs the supply. And then on average, 4 in 10 students are currently, grads rather, are underemployed, meaning they're doing a job that did not require their college degree. And we cannot ignore this change of what's happening with AI in terms of impacting entry-level roles, taking over some of those. It is moving at such a fast pace. I don't even think we all realize what's happening or how it's impacting. So we have this disconnect, right? We have grads and students who are struggling. They're overwhelmed. They're not sure how to navigate this process. Like all of you here tonight, we're parents who we thought the university would be more helpful in helping shepherd our kids along in the process. We thought they'd learn these skills that they needed. And now employers have to make a really important decision. They need talent, but are they going to choose recent grads, or are they going to choose AI or sit on the sidelines and just kind of make do with what they have? So we have this disconnect, we have this problem. So as Mindy said, I am the CEO and founder of Next Great Step, where our sole focus is to help college students and recent grads land the internship or the first job that they desire. And like all of you, I'm also a mom of a college senior, so I get it. I'm living it with you. My older son just finished grad school last year, so I am living this real time. We have been celebrating, actually this year, we are celebrating our 10 years of serving thousands of students to help them be successful and land that job. And I feel that it's more important now than ever than just to get the message out to as many people as we can, giving you tools to help you feel empowered that ultimately can help empower your young adult. So tonight, our focus is really going to be on a few areas. One is to understand what is it that all of us thought would happen and what parents expected, what our students actually thought was going to happen in the job search process, and what employers are really expecting right now. The other piece is this concept of I wish I knew. Parents call me every day and they say, I wish I understood how early the process started, or I wish I understood how to give them better advice. So I want to share with all of you some of the things that people say they wish they knew, so you can hopefully have that ahead of time. I'm going to talk about the impact of AI. Everybody's thinking about it and talking about it. I want to give you my perspective on that, and then actionable tips. But the other key piece of this event tonight is really to be available to answer your questions. So as I'm talking, a couple things, please, if you have questions in the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen, please type in your questions. I will do my very best to answer them and get that back to you. So please put that in there. Also, I have an intern who works with me. Her name is Meg, and she will be posting in the chat resources. So as I talk about certain things, maybe it's a blog or some type of free resource that could be of value to you, please take a look at that. She will be posting all that information in the chat as well as we continue. But we'll kind of please, the goal is to make it interactive. I'll talk for 15 minutes or so, but the goal is really to make sure I'm here to answer your questions. Okay, so let's talk about what is actually happening from a parent perspective, right? We are sending our kids to college. We expect the university, because they, I'm putting in air quotes, promised on the campus tour that they were going to help make sure that our kids have this great job or internship and all the opportunities. And we expect that our students are going to take advantage of that. But did you know that only on average 4 in 10 students actually go to career services or go to career fairs and take advantage of the resources? We also think they're going to learn life skills like networking or engaging with professors, clubs. So, we really want to make sure that that's all happening. And sometimes it happens the way we want. Sometimes it's harder for students. We also think they're going to have this connection and build this, great alumni network and peers that they can rely on. But, I also see too a lot of students who maybe impacted part of their education with the pandemic. Maybe they don't reach out the way they should. So maybe it's not happening as we expected as well. And then, the old ways. What do I say? Old ways. Many of us, I'll include, we all haven't looked for a job in 20 plus years. So we want to offer advice to our kids, but we want to make sure that we don't know exactly what are the right tools to share. And then the last piece is wish I knew, right? What do we know that from a wish I knew perspective? And I'm going to share that with you tonight, especially when it comes to AI. Okay. And I'm just seeing some notes about Q&A. Yes, I see someone put their notes in. So again, please put your questions in the Q&A that is working right now. Okay. From our student perspective, they come into college all excited. Look, if they spent their whole high school as a family effort to getting into the college that they feel that they really wanted, studying the major, they feel that they're doing exactly what they want, or they have the perfect major that they want to pursue, and they're very excited about the process. So they start to engage and get involved a little bit on campus, and they start to say, well, let me try to start getting an internship. Let me just apply online, or maybe use Handshake, which a lot of universities use, or LinkedIn or Indeed, and let me see how it goes. And slowly they'll start to realize they don't really get a lot of feedback, or there's not a lot of response to the applications they're submitting. So they're like, I just need to have all the right keywords in my resume, or I need to make sure my LinkedIn profile has all the right words that need to be found. So they try that method of let's try to beat the tracking system, or let me see if I can, outsmart them. And sometimes it helps yield some interviews. Sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times they'll get scam offers. There's a lot of scam jobs out there as well. And then they start to slowly question their ability of am I smart enough? Do I have the skills that are needed? Why is no one getting back to me? Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was, or maybe I don't have the qualifications. And we can't forget that right now we have a mental health crisis with young adults. On average, 40% of young adults report feeling anxiety or depression, separate from the natural setbacks that happen in a job search that can be a little challenging. And then they start to question, well, what am I doing? Do I even know my major? Do I even know what I want to do? Do I even like what I'm studying? And this whole fear of, what if AI is just taking my jobs? And we just start to see them become more fearful, more afraid, more paralyzed, and more stuck in the process. And then we have employers. Employers, we know this, right? We know from the headlines, they have scaled back. As I just said, a few years ago, there were, multiple jobs for each applicant, and now there's multiple applicants applying to each job. But they need talent and they need the right skills. And very often employers will say to me, I interviewed this candidate, and what they said to me was, I really want this job because I think it'll be great for me. And what the employer really wanted to hear was, I want to hear how you're going to make it great for the company, or great for me as the employer. Making it great for you is nice, but we have real problems that need to be solved. So they want to see candidates that are really putting themselves in the employer's shoes. Then there's this whole process of quiet hiring, which I've talked about in the past. Quiet hiring is when the job never hits a job board. When somebody who's hiring reaches out to their network, to those people that they know and trust, and say, do you know anyone that could help me fill this job ad? I don't want to put it online. I don't have time to sort through hundreds or thousands of resumes. So that's one way they're finding people. And the other thing going on right now is job hugging. Job hugging is where people who have jobs are less likely to leave them because of the job market that we're in. So before, when there might have been a natural progression of people moving around a lot more, you have people who are staying in jobs, you have more people who are trying to just seek out connections through referrals and making it harder for entry level people to come in. The other piece that employers want to see is they do want to see real world experience. They want to see an internship or where you took on a leadership role or got involved with a club or managed a capstone project, something that you can express how you can link and connect the dots from the skills that you have to the skills that the employer is looking for. And then we have this whole piece of AI, right? They have to make a decision. Do I need a human who can do this? Can AI take on this role? Can AI manage the spreadsheets or some of these tasks that used to be more reserved for entry level? And I'll share with you a little bit more. I interviewed actually 3 heads of recruiting, campus recruiting, on what they want from candidates specific to AI. And I'm going to talk about that. But there's definitely, they have an opinion of what they want to see from young adults. So we have this scenario of parents who thought one thing, students who think another, and employers who have this expectation, right? We have this disconnect between these parties. And the goal is to really, how do we bring alignment? How do we bring better understanding to your young adults to help them understand what's going on, and how can you best empower them? So let's talk a little bit about this concept of I wish I knew. And I'm going to talk about what would be really helpful tools for you to advise your student each year of college. But if you're listening and you have a student that graduated already, I just want to let you know it's not too late. Some of these same techniques can still apply, and I will address that as well. So even as a freshman, like I said, a lot of them come to school. They're very excited. They're very enthusiastic. It's an adjustment. There's a lot to navigate. But I really always encourage freshmen to get involved. It's a great way to make friends. Pick one club that's related to your major. Pick one club that's totally for fun, just so you can meet people. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to meet your professors. Even if you go to a school and there's 200 people in a lecture hall, go to office hours and have your students meet them, because not only one, will it help them better understand the material, but 2, forging relationships with professors, which, by the way, they really want to get to know your students. They hear about internships. They hear about experiences where that might be needed. And also when it potentially comes to grad school, you might need a professor to write a reference letter for you. So just forging those relationships early, go to office hours, get to know them. It can be really helpful. And even as a freshman, take that same activities list that was used to apply to college and just put into a very, very simple resume. Because what that does is, as school progresses with more classes, more experience, more exposure, all that starts to fall off and it starts to add on, but it doesn't become quite so overwhelming when you really need a resume when you're a junior or senior. Same thing with LinkedIn, basic, just get on and just visit career services, get to know what they're about. Way too many students leave college, and I'll tell you one of the regrets of college students or college grads who tell me they wish they knew. They wish they engaged with campus resources much earlier or at all. Because as I tell students all the time, it's the only time in your life that employers come looking for you on campus. But once you graduate, you're always going to be in pursuit of them. So really try to make use of all of those resources. Same thing, getting into sophomore year. You want to make sure you're kind of progressing in what you're doing. And one of the things I also tell freshmen and sophomores, go to the career fair. And very often they'll say, well, why would I go to the career fair? Not ready for this, or I barely got out of my core classes. What's the point of that? The reason why you should encourage, by the way, all of them should go, but especially freshman or sophomore, because it's great practice and it's low risk. So it may not need to count quite as much as with a junior or senior. So the more you practice putting on professional clothes and walking up to someone and shaking your hand and looking them in the eye and introducing yourself and asking a few questions about their company or organization, it's a lot less scary when you actually have to do it and when it counts even more. So I encourage that. I want to share a little bit if you have a young adult who's looking to get into finance, consulting, for the big companies. When I say Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and big consultings, EY, Deloitte, they start the recruiting very early. And This is not for everyone, but even at the end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, these companies are starting to speak to candidates 18 months ahead prior to hiring them for a junior year internship. So please just make note of that. This is not for everyone. And by the way, there's thousands of companies who don't hire this way, but for those who really want to be, and sometimes they also say, I can't believe I missed the time frame, or I missed the window, or I had no idea it started this early. I'm letting you know it starts very early, and that if you're not in an undergraduate business school that usually has more information about it, you really need to seek it out and understand when these companies are come to campus. And my other thing is start cleaning up your social media. And I know people create private accounts. Nothing is truly private when an employer wants to do a search on what you are about or what you're doing. And I know there's a lot of different ways people can express themselves. Just be really, I would be really careful about what you have on your social media. And I would really try to just make sure that's always, always really clean. Okay. For our juniors, now you really want to think about that summer internship. Really can be so valuable in not only helping you figure out what you do want, but also what you don't want, and getting that resume and LinkedIn profile updated. And this concept that we teach about core skills, figuring out what are the top 3 skills that I am the most competent, most skilled at, and I enjoy doing. And when you lead with these skills, everything's easier. How you talk about yourself, how you introduce yourself, how you answer interview questions, how you write letters. So getting clear about that can be really, really valuable. And then having a real strategy getting into the career fair and knowing which companies do I want to speak with? What do I know about them? How have I prepared? So those are really valuable as well. And then, doing more of that networking, being knowledgeable about the industry that you want to go into, having just reading. I mean, there's so many ways now, even with Chat GPT, you can tell Chat to send you an update every Monday at 10 a.m. of these are the top 3 companies I'm interested in. Tell me that, top 3 things I should know about them and what's happening. And I mean, you can have so much information fed to you, Google alerts, without even having to seek it. So just being knowledgeable and really preparing for those interviews. And then as a senior, right now in the fall of senior year, really preparing for that post-grad job search, narrowing down which kind of roles, what kind of people, what kind of industries. But I'll tell you, the networking is critical. And if anything, I say this whether you're a senior or you're post-grad, if you're going to give advice to your student, it's not about the number of jobs that you've applied to online. I'm not as curious about, oh, I did 100 applications. The metric to really focus on is how many live people have you spoken to? How many people have you connected with that are doing a job that you aspire to over the phone, in person, over Zoom, without guessing what you think they want? Because that is how people get hired. And you'll hear me say this again, is that people hire people, not a tracking system, not AI, not a computer. And you need to forge those relationships. And that's how those referrals and that happens as well. Same thing, a strategy for the career fair, a thank you note, and follow up and being persistent with every person that you meet, because you don't necessarily have to be the smartest or have the best grades. You just need to be the most persistent, and those that really show up with the right skills in front of employers tend to do really, really well. So I want to pause for a moment, and I actually, let me pause at this moment because I have more content, but I see some questions coming in, and let me stop sharing for a minute. So let me answer a few questions just to kind of what's on people's minds. So hi, Stacy, thanks for asking your question. So personal contact has put your kid in touch with one of their contacts. What's the appropriate follow-up? And looks like I have, it's doing like live captions here. They say, let me look into it, and they don't hear back. What's the appropriate? So here's my guidance about follow-up. First of all, every time you meet with somebody, or your student or grad meets with someone, they should have a plan for that conversation. And the plan for the conversation shouldn't be, can I just pick your brain? Or Tell me what I should do, or what do you think? Hopefully there's been a conversation where, hold on, I'm seeing these captions and I want to shut it off for a second because it's kind of making me crazy here. I don't want to pin it to the bottom. How about overlay? Sorry, I don't know how to do that, but okay. And I think just following up 24 hours after you meet, relaying what you enjoyed learning from that person and what the next steps are. Now, if there was no next steps and the person said, I'll keep your resume in mind, or I'll forward it to someone, or whatever it is, trying to just follow that up in an email saying, as we discussed, you're going to speak with your colleague. I look forward to speaking with you. I'll follow up with you again in another, 5 to 7 days. So letting them know also that your student's going to be persistent at staying in touch. Normally I like to have students ask for more of an action than just, I'll look into it, or I'll keep your resume on hand. What's a better action is, based on our conversation, can you make an introduction for me to this person or someone in this department? So it's more actionable versus, yeah, I'll let you know. So it also gives you a reason to follow up with more concrete, reason to do that. If they don't hear up, part of it is being persistent. And my philosophy about following up in general, and I know students have such a hard time with this and they're so uncomfortable with follow up. They feel like they're bothering the person. They feel like they don't want to be perceived as someone who's, doesn't leave them alone. But follow up 24 hours after, and then you follow up every 7 days until you get an answer from that person, yes or no. But the 7 days, every 7 days, not every say you're not saying the same thing. You're not saying, do you have an update? Do you have an update? Do you have any progress? What you're doing every 7 days is offering value. You could say, I just read this article and I thought of your organization. I'd love to know your thoughts. I look forward to speaking again soon. Or I listened to this podcast. Or I was working on this project and I was thinking about our conversation and how I could relay it, like something that connects the dots and adds value. And one of my favorite phrases of when you've sent maybe the second or third letter and there's no response, you start the letter with, please pardon my persistence. Please pardon my persistence. It shows that you're professional, you're being respectful, and it also shows that you're not going anywhere. And I really like it. It tends to yield an answer because people usually just have their inboxes buried and it usually gets their attention. So I would follow up and keep at it until they get an answer. And if not, they cannot put all their eggs in one basket. I think that's another problem with a lot of young adults as well. They'll have one lead or one interview or one networking call, and they'll be like, well, I'm just going to wait on that. It's not going to move the needle. It's just not. They need a number of people and opportunities that they're working on simultaneously, especially in this job market. So I hope that helps answer that question. All right, another good question. I actually was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about this last year. So should a student go to grad school after graduating and maybe the job market would be better, or should they work first and then go to grad school? So I get this. By the way, the same kind of trend or questions were asked back in 2020 when we had the pandemic. And the question of, well, the market's really bad, maybe I should just write it out and go to grad school. And I know a lot of universities are also making it very enticing for students to stay. So a 4+1 with an MBA, they'll make the MBA, tuition a lot lower than it would be if you went back, or some kind of master's. And my philosophy on grad school is this: there are certain degrees or certain professions that absolutely need grad school: medicine, psychology, architecture, law, right? We know, social work, that you have to have a master's. But if you're not sure, my philosophy that it's a very expensive procrastination tactic. And I am seeing this now because I've had many students who went on and got the extra year MBA. We'll just use that as an example. But they still had no internships and no job experience. It did nothing for them in terms of putting them ahead of other candidates. So my philosophy is if you're not sure, go to work and try some things out, even if it's a paid internship, even if you're shadowing, even if you're doing short term micro internships. If you've never heard of that, there's a company called Parker Dewey. And Meg, if you can put the link of Parker Dewey in the chat, there is a company, this company specifically looks for college students that matches them with big companies. It's short-term based work. It could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's paid. And it's a great way to get different types of experience. But my net is that I'd rather you go work and figure out what you want and then determine if your field actually needs a master's, because in many cases it probably doesn't. But until you know that for sure or figure it out, you may not even be as valuable to contributing in the classroom or with other people who might have already worked and went back to grad school. And if you're coming straight from undergrad, you may not have as much to contribute or get out of it. So I think you should try to work first unless you're very clear that your profession absolutely needs a master's degree in order to do it. So I hope that helps. And then, hi, Hillary, how do you handle the job search when students are abroad junior year? I know this is challenging. My nephew is as a junior right now, and he's going abroad for spring semester. And so he and I have been working together on trying to help him motivate. Sometimes you need to work on it the semester that you're not here. That you're in school. So let's say they're going away in the spring, really try to hone in on now and really work on it. I've had plenty of students who take interviews and do that when they're abroad. You just have to do it at, different hours. And sometimes you have to figure it out when you get back. Sometimes, as I say, school's always the priority. And there will still be people and companies that hire interns. A lot of times they don't have it figured out until the spring, even though there's a lot that try to do it now. There's plenty that still figure it out in April, May, and June. For the summer, maybe budget becomes available. So just have them work on it, whether it's now, whether it's then, even when they're abroad, or if they have to work on it when they get back. I think, all of that's on the table. All right. Another question here. Okay. Have a recent grad who's having trouble finding a job in the tough job market. Do you recommend they take any job in their field, even one that doesn't require a college degree, just to gain experience? Or is it better for them to hold out and spend that time focused on finding a position that's a better fit for skills and education? Great question. I get this a lot. And I understand right now because of this market being so competitive and so challenging, there's the feeling of like, let me just take any job that I can get. Now, right. The question is, you're saying it doesn't even require a college degree. I don't know what job you're referring to. If it's more of like a part-time job in retail or that, it depends. The approach that I really encourage with students, and I talked about it earlier, is this whole concept about understanding what your skills are and knowing that if I'm strong, I'll give you an example. So if a candidate and they said their skills are, I'm highly analytical, I am really great at research, and I'm a really strong problem solver. And they have examples of how they've demonstrated that. Could be in a project. Maybe they analyzed data and they brought it to their professor, or maybe they solved a challenging problem in an internship. As long as they have something to back it up, the goal is to find opportunities and jobs that leverage those skills. If they take a job that looks really appealing, we call this like shiny object syndrome. It looks like it's going to pay a lot of money, or it's not in a place where they're at, but they don't really have the skills for it. Eventually they're not going to be happy, and it's going to be difficult for them. So they might end up just switching or leaving or quitting anyway. With all that being said, I'd say try to find a job that at least leverages the skills they have and that enables them to acquire skills or get better at the ones that they think they're good at. So I know it's really hard. I do also, by the way, I'm a big proponent of like part-time jobs while you're looking for a job. So nobody should be job searching 8 hours a day, every day. It's not good for anybody. So you want to take a part-time job or, work at Starbucks or the gym or whatever. I think it's a great way to structure your time and keep you busy. And you shouldn't be, solely like grinding it out because it's not good for anybody's mental health or anybody's energy every day. So I hope that helps answer your question. I know it's hard right now, but if you take a job that you really don't love and you're going to be back to the same point anyway. So maybe spend a little bit more time networking with people and really trying to engage to understand more about roles. That might be a better use of time. So I hope that helps. Okay. So let me come back to that. These are amazing questions. And as you've seen, Meg has been posting a lot of resources. So let me come back to some of the other topics that I think will be of value to all of you. Hold on. Let me jump back over here. So I want to show you this, just kind of let you take this in for a second. This was done by the World Economic Forum of the top fastest growing skills in the next 5 years. And not surprising, it is AI's on top there and, network cybersecurity. But you know what I really love? That number 4, 5, and 6, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, adaptable, curious. These are really important human skills that we need to leverage and that organizations want to leverage along with AI. So I think let me talk a little bit about what's happening in this AI marketplace and what do we do in this AI driven market when it's just you're not sure what to do. And I really feel strongly, sorry, my own son, who's a college senior, keeps calling me, but everything's fine there. Okay. I really want to emphasize how important it is in a couple areas. We as people are still here, right? And people are going to be doing the hiring. And we need people who can also synthesize and organize what information comes out of an AI tool. So you really need to be leading with your skills. It's not just, I think a combination, not just your degree, not just these were my grades and this is what I studied, which are valuable, but the importance of skills and how your skill can help an organization in terms of solving a problem is really, really key. And the other point that I, repeat over and over again is that people hire people, and people are still, making these decisions. And we need to remind our students of that it's so easy. And my older one would always say, Mom, it's not my fault. You put this device in my hand, or I grew up with this device in my hand. I don't know any other way. Or this is how I'm used to interacting. So I get it. It's hard. So we have to kind of unscramble what they're used to and get them back comfortable talking with people. I know if I told someone in their 20s to call someone on the phone, it's like terrifying, calling for a doctor's appointment, but they need to get back to some of these skills because we are the people who are still making some of these decisions for hiring. And that they need to be able to communicate and articulate their value and talk about themselves in a way that's confident and clear and concise. So helping them be comfortable doing that, it takes practice. And they have to, it takes practice. We can't always assume that they know how to do it. They don't. So just helping them get comfortable with that. But I think in the end, being able to differentiate themselves by really combining their knowledge of AI with human skills. So what do I mean by that? It's not just for cheating on your homework. Let's just say it as it is, right? We know there's so many more tools. Can you build a custom GPT? Can you take information that AI gives you? Because we know AI makes a lot of mistakes and they call it slop now. How do you analyze and synthesize what's real and versus what's valuable to help maybe an organization optimize or do something better or create better research? with a human reviewing it and analyzing it. And I think those are the key pieces that employers really want to see from our students in terms of when they talk to them. And I think what would be helpful, and I think kind of brings it to this conversation. So I had the opportunity, part of me is like, I need to do some of my own research, even though I heavily read, follow, test, play with AI, just understanding what's happening, talk to follow a lot of thought leaders. But I wanted to talk to some people who are really on the front lines doing interviewing of solely campus recruiting. So I spoke to the head of campus recruiting for Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and New York Life. So yes, financial and insurance. It's not everybody, but I feel like it was there were some really consistent messages that I kept hearing over and over. And one of the things that was most consistent amongst all of them was about preparation. So you'll notice it wasn't about AI or your grades or where you went to school. It was this lack of preparation. So for all the effort for a student or grad to finally get through and finally get in front of a live person, they could not believe how unprepared they were. Unprepared, such as, do you know what we do? Do you know why you want to be in this division of the company versus the other? Do you know, where we stand in the market? Things that you can easily find with a Google search or an AI search. They were really frustrated that if you're going to be spinning yourself through hoops and your resume and the application, and you make it to an interview and you haven't figured out what are the top 3 things about this company that are really interesting to me, that was really frustrating to them. So that was a really, I mean, not surprising, but just like something that's simple. The knowledge is like in their hand and they weren't looking at it. The other piece that they shared is sometimes there is this reliance on, I have a great GPA, I'm at a great school, like that should be enough. And they appreciate great schools and great grades. However, they want to see motivation. They want to see an attitude of, I want to be here. I really want to work at this company. And let me tell you why. The level of like enthusiasm for it, it actually counts more than I think a lot of candidates even realize. So when they come in and they're like kind of all shy and, well, I've had these schools and they don't know how to talk and they're not even expressing why they want to be there, that's a big piece for them as well. Sometimes they also said, kind of like as going back to my people hire people thing, like the soft skills can outweigh the technical. So even at somewhere like a Morgan Stanley, for example, they don't expect that a student's going to have a perfect understanding of how to do a discounted cash flow. Yes, we'd like to know that you have some classes and that you've covered it, but we want to know, can I talk to you? Can we have a conversation? Do I feel like you're someone that I want to work with and you don't seem robotic? Because by the way, they know when all the resumes are done by AI, they can tell right away because the words are either very overstating, like saying like, I pioneered, I was the helm, or, there's certain words, there's a lot of M dashes. It's too robotic. They know, but they also want to know, like, can I work with you? Can we be on a team together and we'd get along more than having just all the technical pieces. And they want to see resilience. They want to see that you take initiative to do things. So whether it's on campus, yes, do they want to see internships? But they know how hard it is for kids to get them, and it's not the end all. If you didn't have an internship, it's not the reason why you're not getting the job. You might have an opportunity because maybe you did something, maybe you created your own project, maybe you created your own stock project, maybe you did something, you wrote something, you just navigated clubs and organizations at school. They want to hear about all that. So I think it's just very reassuring to know that they're not expecting perfection. They just want to see that you've done some things with a little thought and intention. And then let's talk about AI expectations. I thought their feedback was really interesting, especially from actually both the finance and insurance companies. They don't expect that everybody knows how to code or be the perfect, prompt engineer, because they're not also interviewing for all engineers. So if you have a job that's non-engineering, they don't expect you to know everything. However, they do want to know that you've used AI, and they want to hear how you've used it creatively. They want your opinion about, how do you think AI is going to impact your job? Or how do you think AI is going to impact the future of work in this kind of organization? They want to hear an opinion. There's no right or wrong. They just want to hear that there's been some thought put to it, that you've used it, you're testing it, you've played around with it, and that you have some thoughts about where you might see it going. There's no right or wrong. They just want to know that it's happening, it's coming. All of them said that they are not using AI right now to use it as a screening tool for entry level. They said there might be parts of it in the future, but right now they're not. They actually, it's funny, I have a lot of companies that I think have gone back to the human interaction, because you had an AI application with an AI screener, and then they didn't get any good data or any good candidates. So now I know a lot of companies like even Microsoft and Cisco have come back to in-person interviewing. And just being professional, professionalism starts early, coming in with just looking them in the eye, shaking their hand, writing a thank you note, not, staring at their phone the whole time, taking notes. And then also starting early. And kind of what I said earlier, the process sometimes starts earlier than a lot realize, and they want students to get to know them and engage with them a lot sooner. So just kind of giving you some insight. So here are some tips. So what do you do as a parent? What can you do right now to help your student? I think one of the best things that you can do is help them understand their skills. Sometimes they can't see it, or they'll say, I'm not good at anything. I don't know what I'm good at. I haven't done anything. And as parents, you can say, I've observed, or I've noticed you have strong leadership skills, or I've seen how you've interacted, or when you managed that project, or you had that assignment, or you worked in that part-time job. You're great at, problem solving. You're a great writer, whatever it might be, but help them figure it out. Figure out the top 3 skills and how to explain them. And also to reinforce to them that it's not about a numbers game. Please don't send them to their room or office or whatever and say, okay, by the end of this week, you should have applied to 100 jobs. It's not the metric. The metric I want you to encourage them, once they feel comfortable talking about themselves, are how many people have you reached out to and that you're having a live conversation with. So they're not guessing what it's like to work there or what that job might be. They don't know and they don't understand until they actually speak with someone who's there. Let's talk about making introductions. We all have introductions in our life of people who are in a position to hire, executives, friends, family. I'm all for introductions, but at the right time. So what do I mean? I've had parents who make introductions for their student, and they introduce them to this executive, and doesn't go anywhere. And they're like, wow, I'm really surprised. This person was in a position that could really have done something. And usually the reason why nothing happens is because your student was not prepared. And when it comes to business and money, no matter how close a friend you are, nobody's going to put their own reputation on the line if they don't feel that the candidate in front of them is actually worth doing that for. So please practice with them. Make sure they're prepared. Make sure they know what they want to say and how to say it. And maybe save these introductions for a little bit further down in the job search when you know that they've had some practice networking, having conversations, talking about themselves, doing some interviews. Or by the way, if there's a family member to practice with, great. But just be careful. I'm all for introductions, but don't do it too early because they could blow it. Structuring their time. So there's 2 parts to this. So I will tell you, so my son is a college senior, and I have a specific timeline in my head of when he should be working on making connections and getting ready for the job post-graduation. And that's all well and good. Just because it's my timeline doesn't mean it's his. So very often as parents, we know what's involved. We know how hard it is. But just because we want it at this time doesn't mean they want it. And we need to just be respectful that we have different timeframes. And also they need to finish school, or maybe they're overwhelmed with exams or finals and they can't talk to us at the moment about, talking to so-and-so or researching something. So just to be mindful of that. But also for those who have students who graduated, or maybe they're in between, structuring their time can be very helpful. As I said before, no one should be job searching 8 hours a day every day. It's not a good use of time. It gets very difficult. It's always good to have a part-time job. It's good to go to the gym, go work out. Block time of 2, 3, 4 hours at the most on your job search, networking, calls, letters, follow up. But it shouldn't be all the time. So also adding structure to the day can be really helpful. I've said this probably more times than you want to hear about. People hire people. Don't guess what you think they want. Talk to real people. And I said this earlier, you really need to encourage them to persevere. Tell them to please, part of my persistence is one of my favorite phrases. One call, one email, one follow-up is not going to move the needle and making sure that somebody sees your kid and as the right candidate. Even if they're the most qualified, they still need to persist. And I know it's hard. They're uncomfortable. They don't want to do it. They feel like they're bothering. I get it. I get it. Tell them to do it anyway. What's the worst that'll happen? Nobody will respond, which is probably happening now anyway. So there's no downside. There's really no downside. And the last thing, here's a few, common mistakes that I've just seen parents make. I guess I'll, again, put myself in the category. Sometimes we put so much weight on like, oh, well, I'm sure the college will take care of this, or we don't need to do anything, or I don't need to encourage them because the college promised me that they're going to manage this, or there's resources there and my kid's going to use it, or they're going to use Handshake or these online job boards. As we've discussed this whole evening, please note that sometimes it doesn't happen and they don't use those resources. So please really encourage them to look beyond that in terms of networking and getting on LinkedIn, things like that. I kind of said before too, making introductions too early, make sure they're prepared. Here's another one. This is hard because our kids don't always know what they want to do. I mean, a lot of kids don't know what they want to do coming from high school to college, but try to resist telling them what they should do. And even though we might have some ideas, we can float some ideas to them and saying, I've noticed you're good at this. You might want to consider this. But if we impart our strong opinions or missed opportunities, and that's not really who they are, I'd encourage you to do more listening versus telling. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Timing, I just talked about that as well. This whole concept, and maybe Meg, I don't know if we talked about in the blog, I have one about helping versus hindering. And there's whole idea of how much should I do to help and when is it becoming too much? So if you want to proof their resume or role play interview questions, amazing. Please help them prepare. Please do not walk into an interview. Do not call their employer. Do not send letters on their behalf. And I know people are probably saying, oh my gosh, does that happen? Unfortunately, it does. So, and I know it's with all the right intent. It's all with the right love and desire to help your kid, but they also need to go through this process and they need to practice failing. As uncomfortable as it is to observe and watch them do it, they need to fail because that's how they learn. And they have to go through this sometimes on their own or until they're willing to say, hey, maybe there's another way. And as I said earlier, don't assume they understand how to do this. A lot of them don't understand and they don't really know how it works. So with that, I just wanted to, please, I know there's a couple more questions and I'm going to answer those. I just also wanted to share, I know as Mindy showed, hold on, I'm going to move this out of the way. I am doing an early Black Friday sale. So I am the Amazon #1 bestseller of The Next Great Step, The Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad into a Career. It is my step-by-step approach that we use in our coaching. I really wanted to empower parents, caregivers, friends, family to have this tool. If you click on the QR code, we started our Black Friday sale early. So I really encourage you to get it. I think it's a great tool. And by the way, it's not just for parents. You can look at it with your kid. You can hand it to your kid. They can follow the steps as well. And we also do coaching. We do both private and group. We're starting group coaching next week. If you want to talk about that more, please reach out to us at our website, nextgradestep.com. There's lots of free resources that Meg did a great job of sharing throughout the evening. And again, if you want more information, also please reach out to Mindy Knows. Mindy is a phenomenal resource for helping parents. I wish I knew about her when my my older one was at Penn State. I know there's Penn State is represented. I wish, because if someone hurts their foot or someone doesn't feel well or they need help, they're amazing moms on the ground who help students during their college experience as well. And I'll just share, just because people feel like nobody's getting hired. We've had a lot of, in spite of this difficult job market, we have students who get hired. So I feel really, I'm really proud of the work. We're not recruiters. I don't match them to jobs. We teach them what it takes to get hired. And they are getting, there are jobs right now. It's just knowing how to be strategic and how to really advise them in the right way. So I'm going to take this off the stop sharing. Let me see if there's a couple questions, and then Mindy, we can bring you back on as well. Let me just see. Give me 1 minute. You can hang there. That's fine. Let me answer this question. I think there were a couple here about can a kid who's graduating in December 2026 get a micro internship? I think the answer is yes. I would definitely go to the Parker Dewey website. I have no affiliation except for that I know the CEO, Jeff Moss. I think he's doing an amazing job of helping young adults get these mini internships with real companies. And what's amazing is you can have multiples of those. So I definitely think you could probably look into that now. Another question about, I have a soon-to-be college grad who's a communications major. Seems like the business major students have more direct path up to a job. What do you recommend for the more generalized or broader majors? If you it's kind of such an interesting thing. If you go online or you go to LinkedIn and you just even look at the people who are your friends or coworkers and the jobs they have, and you go down and match what major they have, it doesn't necessarily match. In many cases, it doesn't match. I'm more interested in what are the skills that you think you have, that you think you want to learn more about. Look, kids switch majors. Don't just become a business major just because you think they're more directed. They're going to hate accounting, they're still going to hate accounting. Maybe they're more creative. Maybe they're meant to do something more in digital marketing or PR or advertising. Really help them explore the parts that they know that they enjoy, because there is something, and everyone knows kind of what they like and what they want to do. It's like, how do you bring that out? So I'm not as concerned about the major. I'm more concerned about what are you doing while you're in school to explore all options relating to that or the skills that you want to impart. I mean, I'll just say my son who went to Penn State, he was a psychology major. My husband and I both, by the way, so Mindy started in WashU. We both went to WashU. I met my husband there. I was in the business school. So my husband and I are very entrepreneurial business people. And my son said to me, I want to be a psych major. And of course, I regret this now. I said, well, what are you going to do with that? Which is the worst thing I could have said. And he's like, I really want to understand. I really want to know how people think and why they make decisions and why they behave the way they do. And I said, okay, then if that's the case, explore all those avenues of different aspects of psychology. He worked with children, he worked with athletes, he worked with kids who had selective mute, all the different fields, and ended up he's a sports psychologist. So it kind of, all came together, but I encouraged him to, if you're going to go down a path, then go for it and just have them try a lot of things out. That's the beauty of college. So with that, I think, a couple more here. Hold on. And if people want to hang in for a minute, I'll answer these other couple questions. Thoughts on a strictly one-page resume. So funny, because I was just helping my nephew, as I said, who's a junior, and he's just a go-getter and has a lot of experience. It doesn't have to be one page. If you have legitimate, real internships and real things to talk about. Ideally, I like it to be one page when you're coming out of school, but if you really have enough experience, 2 pages are fine. It's really, if you really have that much, it's totally fine. Do I have a list of skills that could be used to help identify your top three? If they're in my book, you can do that. I have a whole list of skills that we talk about, and they're all in my book. And I do a lot of videos. If you want to follow me on all my social channels, you can hear more about how I talk about how to figure out your skills. And then last one here, do you think some companies only hire from certain schools and thus decline students because of their school? Great question, right? There's this concept of companies who only hire from target schools, either the Ivies or the secondary Ivies. There are always going to be companies who like to hire from a certain schools or certain universities. That doesn't mean that they won't ever take someone from another school. What you do have to do is be more creative, because maybe you're not going to be at all the recruiting sessions. So you have to take the initiative to reach out to someone who's in HR or who's in that role there, or maybe an alumni who's in an entry level role that graduated 5 years ago that you want to talk to, that then makes an introduction for you. So yes, I think that's always going to exist. I don't worry about that so much, because I think there's so many ways to go around that process to get found and potentially get a job. All right, so I'm going to let Mindy close it out for us.
Beth, you are a gem and such a good friend to Mindy Knows. I loved listening and learning from you, and the whole AI climate is so foreign, but just remembering that some of those fundamentals are still there. We still have to write thank you, you still have to write a thank you note. You still have to be prepared, and it's just always good to learn from you and with you. So thank you for taking the time to do this and to help educate us on some of these new trends. We are so grateful. We are a little bit past 7:30 in St. Louis, so I think we should close up. But like I said earlier, feel free to reach out to Beth, reach out to Mindy Knows. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next one. Um, have a good night, everybody, and be safe and be well.
Take care. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.